With just 2 months to go until the first primary in the US presidential election, Donald Trump maintains a strong lead in the polls over his Republican rivals. That's despite criticism over his controversial claims that thousands of Muslims in the US cheered the 9/11 attacks when they happened. Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor of New York on that day, is the latest to wade into that debate. He talked to CNN's Alison Camerota.
We had some attacks, and we did have some celebrating. That is true. We had pockets of celebration, some in Queens, some in Brooklyn.
How many people?
10, 12, 30, 40.
And those weren't just rumors. Those weren't just reports. You went out and checked them out.
We had one situation in which a candy store owned by a Muslim family was celebrating that day right near a housing development, and the kids in the housing development came in and beat them up.
Would have been CNN Politics' MJ Lee in Washington. The former New York City mayor, as you heard there, said Trump's comments were grossly exaggerated. But interesting to note that he also said, and I quote, he is judged by a different standard. Now, he's talking about the other candidates. Is this why he continues to do so well in the polls, no matter what he says?
Well, look, Donald Trump has proven himself to be an amazingly durable candidate. I think that a lot of people a couple of months ago, when Trump first got in the race, did not expect him to be a front runner, did not expect him to be a front runner for many months. But the typical sort of political rules just don't seem to apply to Donald Trump. Every time he has made comments that are either inflammatory or viewed as being offensive, the next day his voters, his supporters do not seem to care. I remember a couple of months ago exactly where I was standing when he made inflammatory comments about Senator John McCain and his service in the Vietnam War. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, this could really be the start of the end for Donald Trump. And that ended up not being the case. So I think the next Republican debate that CNN will be hosting in Vegas, that will be a crucial test for the other candidates to really stand out and really try to set themselves apart from Donald Trump, who continues to maintain his lead no matter what he says. And I don't think it's necessarily that he's being held to a different standard. I think that journalists covering Donald Trump are holding him to a similar standard, and a standard that he should be held to as the current Republican frontrunner, the same way that we're asking questions about Ben Carson's past, Jeb Bush's past, Marco Rubio's past.
There was, of course, another Trump moment just recently when he mocked a disabled reporter. I just want to play this little soundbite of how his advisor defended him.
He was not making fun. He was being gesticulate, which Donald Trump is, and he was basically showing the exasperation of a reporter that's pulling back on a story.
The first votes, of course, happen in 2 months. Is there a chance that Donald Trump will win the Republican nomination in the primary states, or will there be voters that will hold him accountable for these sort of things?
Look, I think several months ago, if a person had said that Donald Trump could be the Republican nominee, they would have been laughed at. But that is really no longer the case. I think the longer he has held on to his lead, his front-runner status, and seeing how well he's doing in some of the early states like Iowa and New Hampshire, people in the Republican establishment are increasingly starting to think that Donald Trump could have a chance at winning this thing. And look, something has to change, right? The field has been frozen for a while with Donald Trump in first place, and with some of the other candidates like Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, not really being able to, vault themselves to the top to give Trump a real run for his money. And I think, again, that's why a debate like the one that's coming up that CNN will be hosting will be so important, because so far Trump has really dominated not only the coverage, but has really held on to his baseline of supporters.
Okay, MJ Lee, thanks for staying across it all for us. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for this edition of CNN Newsroom. The World Right Now with Hala Garani is coming up next.